Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Monday, or whatever day you're consuming this episode of Maximize Monday. Glad to have you here, however you're in taking it in. If you're listening, if you're watching, welcome here to Maximize Your Monday. And with that being said, you can see I have a new guest with me. I have Kasia with me. So thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to jump on here with me.
Thank you, Matt, for the opportunity and for, just putting this podcast on in general. I had the chance to hear a couple of episodes, and I think that you're putting out really important work that's affecting a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Of course, I appreciate that. And it makes sense to have you on since you also utilize the Maximize Monday hashtag on
I
LinkedIn.
sure
So
do.
I'm glad we can finally get this episode going. But you speak about positivity and a lot of stuff that you do to help people, adjust to workplaces and take care of themselves as well. So very important stuff that you're doing. So very glad to have you on to impart some of the things that you do for the listeners, for the viewers,
Mm.
everything like that. So we'll jump into the questions here. You've worked in a few different industries over your career. You've held a few different titles throughout, sales, marketing, brand analysis. As a lot of people know, there's finding those transferable skills when you move from one position to the next is kind of the most challenging part of making those moves. And trying to identify, I've done this in the past, and that will help me to do this. So
Mhm.
walk me through that for you. How were you able to take what you had learned from each of your role, take away, this is stuff that I enjoyed about the role. I want to do this moving forward, and took that with you into new positions as you found them.
Yeah. Great question, Matt. I think I've always gone through life pretty aware, intentional living, trying to stay away from making autopilot decisions.
Mhm.
And so that led me to try a lot of things. And I've tried my best to spend a lot of time reflecting and having like awareness of my actions, what that would mean for me, potential implications, where can this eventually take me, kind of having a longer term view. And at its core, I was always trying to understand myself.
Mhm.
And so reflection was one of those things that came pretty naturally. And I also saw life as very connected. So, when you have one action, how does it impact the other? The things that we do, the experiences that we have, they all matter.
Mhm.
I'm not a nihilist, which
Okay.
sees life as not meaningful. I see a lot of meaning in life. And so, with that, I feel like pattern recognition has been also one of my strong skills. And so, I was always able to pick up the similarities between my different roles very quickly. So, for example, one of my first jobs was as a cashier at Michael's Arts and Crafts. I didn't think of myself as creative back then, but looking back, definitely I am. And when I was a cashier, I would always make like funny comments and kind of break the ice with people as they, were getting ready to check out. And I saw that people, were really entertained by that. And it was, of course, me being authentic and showing up. And so I started to realize like I'm good at having conversations with people. My people skills seem to be pretty good. And I have a tendency to be able to disarm people potentially, depending on the day. And so I knew that building relationships was a key area that I should keep in any kind of job. And so, building relationships. So that was really helpful in terms of making just in general career decisions. But I also started to deduce through these different experiences what also wasn't for me.
Mhm.
So taking this information and using it strategically, doing reflecting before and after each role, having some clarity, and understanding how each of these roles would impact me as a person and shape me as a person.
Right.
And so I think a lot of it just kind of came naturally to me, but I think that these are skills that anyone can cultivate. And lastly, perspective matters,
Mhm.
right? Perspective, the outlook of I get to do this. I get to learn, even in the challenges or the roles that maybe aren't such a fit, understanding that you've still gathered some really critical information that can help you make a better decision for the next um, role that you're in, right?
For sure.
So a lot of gratitude around that. Having a grateful attitude, definitely a key, I'd say, for my
Yeah.
journey. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the positions that you've held, there's been like an element of sales, that some sales focus
Hmm.
in those different positions. And I guess when you break it down in anything that you do, there's probably some element of sales. But
Yeah.
the positions that you've been in have been a little bit more centric in that, starting with the internships that you completed. And
Hmm.
I've interviewed sales associates, sales managers for roles within the company. And question I always ask is, what initially appealed to you about being in a
Mm.
position within that? And you've probably seen it, everyone I talk to in sales has seen it. It's not for everyone. So,
Hmm.
why is it for you? What's kind of kept you motivated to challenge yourself with new responsibilities as they come to you?
This is a fun question. And um, I did reflect on it because you bring up a point. It's not for everyone. I definitely agree. Professional sales is very unique,
Mhm.
almost like takes maybe a certain type of personality, but everyone is selling themselves
Yeah.
at every moment because this is the impact of influence, right?
Right.
For me, what really stuck out about professional sales was that I was helping people and obviously the opportunity to make money because we live in a world where that's
Yeah.
a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And as well as like the autonomy, right? So being able to work on my time and on my rhythm. Every company is different, but I knew that this independent work aspect was really important to me. And it took some time and some navigation, but I ended up in a role where I'm very trusted, right, in my role. So I think sales is a key piece of, or trust is a key piece of like being a successful salesperson. But another piece is just being able to work on my own rhythm because I have, gotten in touch with how I like to work over the years. And I'm sure that other people have, unique working styles as well. The 9 to 5 is not for everyone. Some people are lucky enough to be able to adjust it, but being in tune with my own rhythms and having some kind of a role that supports that. If I feel like working from 10 to midnight, I can,
Yeah.
and I'm
Sure.
a little celebrated for that sometimes.
Yeah.
But those are kind of the main pieces. Another one is actually being able to create my own outcomes.
Mhm.
And I'll share a story with you because in one of those internships through school, I worked for the government and it was a wonderful place with wonderful people. I had a fantastic team that was super supportive. At the same time, I finished my work so quickly. And then they would, my managers would tell me, "Well, slow down, you're not going to have work to complete." And I was like, when I go, I go. I know I'm, fast-paced and what I took from that experience was that um potentially government work isn't for me and maybe I should explore the private sector. I
Mhm.
didn't know really about professional sales at the time. Maybe we'll get to that story,
Yeah.
but it was just one of those going back to the first answer, you take your experiences and you learn from them,
Mhm.
and you reflect on them. And so some of my motivators are definitely around being able to create my own opportunities, create my own outcomes, and definitely have the autonomy that I need to make stuff happen
Yeah.
because my energy levels aren't the same every day. And, things fluctuate.
Sure.
Let's say that, right?
Yeah.
So, one other interesting piece is um, being in sales, given that this is like an essential life skill, which I've mentioned. I was so surprised as I was just as I've been on this journey at how much my spiritual progression was also tied to
Yeah.
sales.
Sure.
And it's something that, it's like, where's the connection? It's hard to see it at first, but it requires you like to be a successful salesperson, to know yourself, to be authentic, and to be able to communicate these things really effectively to other people because you're ultimately in a game of trust.
Mhm.
And so while it's not for everyone, I do think that everyone should work at this skill because it's just so critical, right?
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you mentioned creating your own opportunities, your outcomes. And if
Mhm.
people have visited your LinkedIn page, they can see that you've co-founded a few organizations. It seems that the overall goal there is to provide support, encouragement to people to trying to find their own
Mhm.
way in a specific industry. So walk me through, the founding of these organizations. Was it past experiences that kind of motivated you to do this, to be that source of motivation to others? And how has being involved in things like this, being a support for others, helped you in terms of your own professional growth?
Love this one. I think there's two main points here, and it's one, the need to have an open mind and to be humble enough to realize that like we're always learning and we're always growing and adopting that mentality.
Mhm.
And the second piece is what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
This law of karma um, is universal and it plays out in real time for people everywhere, depending on, well, regardless of the circumstances.
Right.
And so looking back at my own journey, and it's hard to believe that I've been out of school for, the last 6 years, out of university or college, there's been so much support that I received along this journey. Different mentors, different teachers, seeking out knowledge. And all of that has helped build me to where I am now,
Mhm.
you know? And so all of these faded moments, all of these like by chance, right place, right time, or one person introducing me to the other, all of these have helped me unravel like different pieces of myself that are then affecting my material outcomes. So my
Right.
results at work or my the like ability to show up after like a tough thing happens, right? And so yeah, there's been no shortage of good connections from one to the other. And I've just experienced in my life enough times to see this law play out. And even before that, I think that I've had a very, giving back mentality. My parents raised me to always be respectful. You never really know the circumstances that someone else has. And when you can extend a hand to pick someone up, why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you be kind? My
Yeah.
parents are very humble. But to wrap it up, because I can sometimes drone on,
No, no, it's great.
this is a really important piece of being human, right? Like the compassion for other people, realizing that a part of the human experience is to do this with other people,
Yeah.
that we're all in it together. And if we don't help one another, eventually that lack of, I guess, humanity or compassion is going to come around to you one way or another.
Mhm.
Because if you're always trying to push ahead and put yourself first, you're missing a key element of, the human experience and the fact that we're doing this all together.
Right.
So, being involved with different groups, having different mentors, it's all instilled in me and reinforced what I already knew in terms of, you know, yes, of course, like you have to put yourself first, but
Mhm.
not at the expense of other people, and it's like not dragging people down. I hope that
Yeah.
is coming out how I want it to sound,
I
right?
mean, it sounds great. So, hopefully
Thank you.
it is. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, you and I have been connected for some times. I'm a big fan of the posts that you have up on LinkedIn. I always think you just do such a great job of having people engage. Getting that side of people out to think about what you're
Mhm.
posting and not just click like or the
Thank you.
heart emoji, but actually like interact with you through those, which is great. And one of your recent posts was focusing on, how your personal life can provide you positive results in your
Mm,
professional life, which I think is a concept that is lost on a lot of people. And they struggle to, everyone says they want work-life balance, but actually finding that, embracing that can be the challenge. So walk me through your story a little bit. How did you kind of teach yourself to focus on you first and then utilize
mm.
that for the personal or professional success?
This is such an important piece that I think people, like you said, don't put two and two together often enough. And so I'm hoping to impact this by talking about it. A
Mhm.
few weeks ago, I realized, well, not even weeks, like a few months ago, I was like, why are more people not realizing that this is really important? You have to, kind of bridge the two, and you're, multi-dimensional, and you've got all these aspects to yourself, and people get so focused on one or the other.
Right.
And I was like, why are people not talking about it? And I realized how hypocritical I was being in that moment because I wasn't talking about it. That's when really the consistency came in.
Yeah.
But to back up a bit, a series of events, and I'll give you the Spark Notes version, the shortened version, but a series of events in university brought me to a bar. And I met a contact who introduced me to someone who introduced me to someone who then brought me into the world of professional sales and technology. And so in that realm, I was dabbling around. I had no quota. I was just trying to throw stuff at the wall and see what stuck.
Right.
I ended up at Vena and I crashed and burned. Like in the first few months, it was some of the hardest like wake up calls. And it
Mhm.
was so difficult to keep pushing because I was like, I'm better than this. I'm better than booking 0 meetings as an SDR, um, week over week over month. And, it was like 6 months. I hadn't really booked anything. And that's a professional life fail.
Yeah.
There's no, um, it was really hard to understand what was happening because in my soul, I felt like this is my calling. I know I can, make an impact and help people through this,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't landing. And so I realized during that process that my capacity to handle life was at just zero. There was no ability there. And so I was trying sales training. I was listening to different podcasts on my drives into and from work. I was, speaking with different like experts and stuff like that. And none of this information was helping. The self-help books weren't helping, Um, until I realized that there was an aspect of having to heal and take action to take care of myself, address the skeletons I had in my closet that were holding me back
Mhm.
from any kind of success, right?
Right.
And I didn't realize I was doing it in the moment, but I was expanding my capacity. And capacity can also be seen as like emotional resiliency, right? To keep showing up even when you're on the battered path and it's hard to even see the path forward. And you just keep showing up because you trust yourself.
Yeah.
So I started that work through working with a spiritual guide. And she was offering a path of self mastery, which I realized this was self mastery. And she was doing that through a mystery school, which, these things used to be very private and sacred spiritual institutions. They were closed to the public. And so I did some healing work with her and I did some coaching with her about, how the universe works and how the world works and what are these universal principles that everything and it impacts everything and everyone.
Right.
And so I started to apply certain principles that I was learning into my real life because you're encouraged to apply these lessons and these teachings into your own life and see how they impact you, and it's always for the better. I
Mhm.
was experiencing all this positive change and I realized I changed my reality in real time. There were a lot of moving pieces, but in essence, in a matter of months, I went from stressed to success. I was one of the top SDRs at work. And a couple of years later, multiple presidents clubs and overachievements at work with the same company. And of course, I have stressful moments, but those come with being human. So I'm not saying that all the stress in my life is gone, but it's like it's livable,
Yeah.
and you learn how to harness this energy and create better outcomes for yourself. So to get back to the point of, how are the two kind of related and all of that. So this process showed me that how I was showing up at home impacted how I was showing up at work. So
Okay.
who I am at home is who I am at work and vice versa because you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Um, it's this principle of duality as well, right? And
Mhm.
so you can't have one without the other. Even on an airplane, they say that, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help other people. And that's kind of the same thing that I was learning is like, I can't show up for other people at work and expect to book meetings with high level executives if I'm not taking care of my garden.
Right.
And so to kind of wrap this point off, I think that a lot of conditioning in society and in like families, maybe dysfunctional families, it's like, you owe me something and
Mhm.
you have to help me no matter what. Sometimes those kinds of dynamics can be seen and it distorts people's priority priorities and it takes away that discernment that they need to go through life really effectively. So my opinion is that healing or like that a lot of the success in life actually comes from healing. And healing is deconditioning what other people expect of you or what society tells you. And you have to know who you are in order to be able to come out as your like authentic self and to be able to present that and thereby all of the physical material success will come from that. You know,
Yeah.
that's a little bit of the story. It's a lot longer, but
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But well, let's keep talking about healing
Mhm.
because you do run a or have a consulting firm where you act as a corporate healer.
Mhm.
So for those who are unfamiliar, what are some of the main things that you try to do for people that come and seek your insight, your advice? What are you trying to do? Because there's various ways that people need that type of support.
Mhm.
So, how do you cater it, and what are some of the things that you try to walk them through that was with the initial consult, like, hey, what does a
Mm.
corporate healer do type of question that you probably get often.
So fair. I think that this is a phrase that people are like, "A what?" So they've never heard it. I coined it a few months ago and started branding myself as that. And I know that healer can have almost like this um can result or like immediately bring in this concept of woo in people's heads, like woo woo. But for the people that are willing to take a bit of a higher perspective, um, it goes back to deconditioning and challenging your beliefs and moving past your excuses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so as a corporate healer, what I'm trying to do is to help people develop self-mastery, like I mentioned, because everything in life starts and ends with you. And so how do you change your narrative? What are the stories that you're telling yourself that keep you stuck?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of that feeds into, you who you are at home is who you are in at work.
Yep.
And so helping to people to bridge those gaps by helping them understand the links. Also to help people embody more of like a creator mindset. So moving past the victim of, oh no, I can't believe this is happening to me, to like, is it possible to shift that and see what opportunities this is presenting? Because I mentioned earlier, like life is about perspective.
Yeah.
So to me, healing means creating different outcomes. That's what healing is. And a lot of the time and a lot of people are out here doing inner work. Like I want to just call out the fact that there are a lot of people doing the inner work that is helping them create better outcomes for their lives, right? And this
Right.
is a this is a forever journey. Like I may be, a corporate healer. I may have moved through a lot of my own stuff, but by no means am I at my end goal either. I'm humble enough to say that I'll be on this journey forever. And I just wish to help people who like are intimidated by it or aren't sure how even this could help in a way, right? So kind of raising that awareness, and I'm trying to do that with some of my content.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, a lot of people struggle with the same issue at the root, whether it's in their personal life or whether it's in their professional life, and it's actually lack of clarity. So if you don't know where you're going, how do you expect to get there?
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't, I don't blame people, right? Because how can you know where you're going when you don't know who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a really big crisis in the world right now is that people don't know who they are. And
Right.
it's like, I know who I am.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you know yourself as a employee, as a wife or a husband, maybe as a mother or a daughter. You know yourself as a VP because you've spent your whole professional life building to that moment.
Yeah.
But then if you strip that away, because it could be taken away from you,
Mm-hmm.
who are you then?
Yeah.
Who are you at your core? A lot of people identify themselves with these masks and these labels, and they're not connected to something that's greater than them and in them, this amazing power that they have and they hold. And that's the part of you that has the ability to change things and change your physical circumstances, right?
Right.
I've done it. I know a lot of people who have done it, and it doesn't come without addressing the skeletons in the closet. And so, at the heart of the work that I do it's helping people know themselves, develop a better relationship with themselves, because you can't do that and not have fruit from it.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, that's my answer.
So you mentioned the content that you create, and I already alluded to it. I won't. I'll heap praise on you again because I do enjoy what you put out.
Thank you, Matt.
And
Means a lot.
positivity is a key concept of what people can see in your post, and it's not. It never feels forced. It feels very
Mhm.
authentic when you post, and people can see that you genuinely live the way you promote on social media. So your headline says master stress, balance energy, integrate wellness. How do you aim to do that in your daily life that then translates to what
Mm.
you're posting about?
Great question. I've gone through about 100 headlines in the last like 6 months. So it seems like this one feels good. And I know that I post a lot of positive, content, and I'm also well aware of the fact that there's like toxic positivity out there. And I'm not trying to promote that by any means, right? Because like I said, there are days and weeks that stuff is really hard. And I'm like, okay, but it's choosing what you want to focus on because
Yeah.
it's the perspective piece, right? So, um, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten from one of my teachers, once I realized my mission was to help people heal and kind of live this elevated version of themselves, as I've definitely created for myself in this whole journey I've gone through, was to get over yourself.
Hmm.
And it sounds so mean, especially in our society where the younger generation is so sensitive, you
Hmm.
know? But in order to show up for other people, I have no choice but to push past my excuses and, the challenges that come up and the laziness, the sad parts of life.
Yeah.
If I, I like to think at least I'm wise enough to know that if I'm having a sad moment, it's because I get to feel the other side of the pendulum. You get to feel these amazing highs in life too. Again, the duality of life.
Hmm.
Nothing is permanent. You're not going to stay in this, sad or negative situation for very long unless you choose it actively.
Right.
Um, so anyway, um personally years I've done a journey of years of deconditioning and of healing, embracing my true self, developing a relationship with myself
Hmm.
because I didn't really have one before.
Yeah.
And developing a relationship with her and loving her. Like I love myself. Um, I think a lot of people don't even like themselves,
Yeah.
from what I experience in my day to day of living life as a person and walking down the streets of cold Toronto now. Like sometimes it's hard to see people with a smile,
Right.
because they're genuinely enjoying life. And I think that most people don't get to this point in life.
Yeah.
So, having gone through this process, again, it's not overnight. It takes months and years of like really hard stuff. And I'm not saying either we have to process everything. There are actually healings that can help us process stuff without mentally picking everything apart. And I think that's actually one of the cool parts about looking at things from an energetic perspective, whereas something traditional like therapy is like talk about it, talk
Uh-huh.
about it until you can't talk about it anymore. And it can keep people stuck. And I was in therapy for a little while. It did what it needed to do. And certain people need it, right? So it's an amazing tool. But there's also, this concept of, are you living in joy or are you just happy?
Yeah.
Because happiness is fleeting. And I
Right.
can tell you I live a life of joy because I think again of all the work that I've done, all the investments I've made in myself, all the times I've showed up for myself when I didn't really want to.
Hmm.
So, in terms of, yes, like positive content and how I'm trying to help people, supporting people through this deconditioning process and this healing, challenging them to become more honest with themselves, reflecting things back to them from a different perspective, challenging their beliefs and, perceptions in life.
Hmm.
I'm not a therapist, but I think I have a dang good grip on reality.
Yeah.
And so if people are interested in being challenged, reading thought-provoking content, and of course, being open-minded, because none of that works if you're not open to the potential of change. I think I'm a pretty good person to have in your
Yeah.
corner.
Absolutely. I would
or
agree.
on your feed.
I would agree. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely. So, last question I have for you is the question that everyone who joins me on Maximize
Mhm.
Monday gets. And you've already shared a lot of insight advice already, but I still like to always close out with that,
Of
that
course.
key piece of advice that you've received or that you like to give out often enough. If people are
Mhm.
coming to you like struggling with something, asking for insight, what's kind of that thing that you find yourself consistently sharing to those who come to you seeking some form of input?
From a career perspective, but also from life in general, take a long-term view at what you're building or what you want to create and make decisions from there. So you need to know where you're going and create clarity for yourself by first knowing who you are and
Mm,
what you want out of life, not just what's been told is like success.
right.
I'll share a personal story quickly is that I used to think that like when I was in business school, I was like, I'm gonna be the CEO of a $1 million empire. And like I wanted to be a CEO with like 1,000 people reporting to me.
Mm,
I thought that that was like, you've made it.
yeah.
And now I just want to build something that helps people. And I hope it grows, but I'm no longer attached to the fact that I need to have 1,000 people on payroll
Hmm.
in order for my life to have meaning because I've done work to create meaning in my life that's not attached to this professional area
You're right.
aspect.
Yeah.
So it's important to have that vision for yourself and to get very, very clear on it.
Hmm.
And one more piece of this, and it kind of ties in, is like delay your gratification. We live in a very instant cha-ching society. Like social media is a perfect example. I was pinged, I think, twice or three times while we were on the call.
Yeah.
And how autopilot is it for us to go and check? And like something is running your mind, you're like Pavlov's dog or cat or whatever, and it's got control of you.
Yeah.
So, learning to master yourself actually helps you build focus and resiliency and allows you to delay this gratification so that you can build things that matter to you because that's
Mhm.
all that really matters. Other people's opinions don't matter.
Right.
And then just the very last piece, I just said it in the last answer or question and answer, but like get to know yourself, get to like yourself, and eventually get to love yourself because you're the only person in your life that's guaranteed to be in your life forever.
Yeah.
So the relationship you have with yourself really matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice. So, Kasia, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on here with me. I'm glad we could do this. I love that you hashtag maximize Monday all the time. And it's great to see your content. So if you're not connected with Kasia or following, make sure you're doing that. For everyone who's watched, who's listened, who's commented, appreciate all the support that we're getting through this. We aim to do this a lot more and
Mhm.
showcase, how you can succeed on your own as well. So thank you for everyone who's watched, who's listened, and we'll see you next Monday.